We're interviewing Paul Stone today, who is a veteran of World War II. So, Paul, thank you for being here. Let me shake your hand. And thank you for your service. You were born here in Sacramento in 1926.
26, yes, I was.
Yeah, and of course, you weren't born in a hospital.
No.
You were born at home, like a lot of babies in that time.
33rd and I.
Yeah, so your residence was at 845 33rd Street.
33rd, yes,
Which,
it was.
And your parents were Mervyn and Marie Stone.
Right, yes.
Your father was the agent for the California Pine Box distributors.
As it Setzer Box, too.
Yeah, and this was located, I looked it up, it was at 1401 Front Street. So it was...
Okay, yeah, but then they moved over to, let's see, Broadway and 5th Street.
Okay, I know that intersection.
Yeah.
Yeah, my boss was in a horrendous accident there. And you and I talked, and you said most of the boxes were used for boxing fruit and produce.
Yes, yeah.
And
that was what my dad's job. He went up and down the river selling boxes to the various farmers that were shipping fruit out of the area.
Right. And your mom was a housewife.
Yes, she was.
You had 3 brothers and a sister.
Yes, yes.
And that must have been a handful.
Oh, it was.
Your residence there is very close to McKinley Park.
McKinley Park, yeah. We always played over there. And in fact, we still owned the place. My son has turned it into an apartment.
Oh.
And
the old homestead.
The old homestead.
Okay.
It's an apartment now.
I've seen some of the old photos of McKinley Park, and it shows cars that look like they were from the 20s parked there for camping. And there was a row of palm trees that are all gone that came right through the center before they built the Clooney Clubhouse.
Yeah, actually, the road went through there.
Oh, okay.
There was a road that went through the park.
Did they have a swimming pool there when you were a kid?
They didn't. Well, it wasn't there, and after I left there, they did put a swimming pool in there, and a playground for the kids.
Yeah. And if you wanted to go swimming as a kid, where would you go?
We'd head for the river.
Yeah, exactly. Same place we went.
Yeah,
Years later, yeah.
Right.
And then my folks joined Arden Hills, and we swam there.
Yeah,
so
that helped out.
Yeah, there were more girls there. And your mom, as a kid, worked in the hop fields.
Oh yeah, she did.
And I remember we came here the winter of 54, 55, and I remember the hop fields just stretching for miles.
Oh yes, yeah. My mom and her sisters would go and get a job there, and they would cut the bottom of the hop, and it would drop, and one of them caught my mom right on the head, and it messed her up a little bit.
So they have some weight to them.
They do.
Yeah.
They did.
I remember seeing those big tall poles and with the cables running by them, and we used to wander out through those hop fields. It was really something.
I can imagine.
And you mentioned the Cutter Ranch. Now, was that part of the Cutter Ranch, those hop fields?
Yes, it was. It was.
I didn't know that. I hadn't heard of the Cutter Ranch, but
I'm trying to think. There was an ostrich farm there.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
And they went broke, and so there at the corner, and I can't think of what the streets were.
Maybe 56th and H, or?
Well, on the other side of the river.
Oh, okay.
And it would be Folsom Boulevard, I guess. And Mom, they had a contests, and if you could shoot and get the winner or whatever, you'd get a turkey. And my dad wasn't a gambler, but my mom always wanted to go out there because she was a pretty good shot.
So this was a shooting gallery then?
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a bar, really. And so she'd end up getting the turkey that way.
Oh, wow. You were also near New Helvetia Cemetery and Park.
Yeah. We always played baseball. We'd go over there. There's a just tremendous big oak tree in the center, and it was a Chinese cemetery.
Which is now Sutter Middle School playground.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And you talked about going to the theater, which was a close walk.
It sure was. We'd go there. Then we'd go across the street, cut across to J Street, and there was a store, Martha Washington ice cream parlor was right there. And we'd always get an ice cream there, and then we'd go on to the theater.
Washington. In fact, one of my questions was where would you go to get ice cream? You just answered that.
It was right there.
Yeah. And you went to the Alhambra Theater.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And how much did it cost?
Oh, 15 cents.
Wow. Yeah, it's a little more than that now. And
Yep.
Sadly, in the early 70s, they tore that theater down and put in a Safeway.
Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think there's a song about that, only related to San Francisco or Daly City.
Right.
And you also mentioned the Turnverein Hall. Now, what would you do there?
Well, we had exercised. Mr. Borcher was a coach, and all the German kids that lived in the neighborhood, we'd all go there Saturday morning, and he would exercise us. And he had big ropes, and we'd have to shimmy up the rope to the ceiling and then down, and we would exercise. And so we had exercises for about two hours.
Wow.
All of the German kids that lived in the neighborhood there.
I saw some old photographs, I think going back to as far back as like the 1850s, where the Germans, a lot of them who were brewers, and started a lot of, I think James wrote a book on the breweries here in Sacramento, and there was a whole bunch, because you had good water, you had hops, you had other grains,
it was all there.
The Germans started that club long ago.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And there was a trolley car system back then when you were a kid.
The streetcar came down from 46th and 46th, and it was there, and then it went down to 21st. It was 46th, and then down J Street, and then
over to Joyland.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, which is Oak Park.
Oak Park.
Yeah. And so you would use that base essentially to go for your piano lessons.
Yeah.
Which
I sure would.
Over by Y Street, which is now Broadway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that you went to church. You went to the First Church of Christ Science.
Yeah, there at 23rd Street.
Yeah, like 23rd and Capitol.
Yeah.
And that building is still there, or that?
It's still there. It isn't used as a church anymore. I don't know what's there, but
okay. Yeah, there weren't many Christian scientists in Sacramento ever.
No, there weren't. There weren't. Although there were a lot more then than now, I think.
Was your father the first in your family to be, or your mother in that religion, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, I just...
it was important to them. They really did an awful lot of activities with members of the church, so we would go to Sunday school there and go to church.
There's the reading room there across from Trader Joe's. I'm always kind of intrigued by it.
Yeah.
On Folsom Boulevard.
Yeah.
And then early schools. You went to David Lubin.
David Lubin, right.
Which is still the same location, but a different building. Of course, it's 3535 M Street.
Is that right?
Yeah. I looked that up.
Yeah.
And David Lubin, of course, was this fellow who came from Poland, who became a big philanthropist, but he had what do you call the one price store, which turned into Weinstock Lubin's, because Weinstock was his half brother or something.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Well, I looked up. I wanted to know where his home was, and his home is that elaborate sort of thing that looks like it's from the Middle East, on 39th Street.
Yeah.
And there was an interesting article. It's on the garden tour. That's how I knew about it.
I didn't know that.
And so then, anyway, but that's David Lubin. He got a lot of things named after him, I guess.
That's right.
Then you went to Kit Carson Junior High School.
Right. I rode my bicycle from 33rd to 54th.
Right. 54th and M.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's still there. It's a whole different building. And then finally you went to Sacramento High School.
Yep.
Which is still where it used to be.
Yeah.
34th and V, as in Victor.
Right.
And what sort of activities did you do in high school? You played in a musical group or anything, or?
Yeah, I did. We had a band going all through that.
We talked a little bit about some of the jobs you worked as a kid.
Oh boy, I'm trying to think of.
Well, one that I thought was fascinating was that you were like an intern with the fire department.
Oh, well, that was during the war.
Uh-huh.
The war had just started, and so all of the kids, they asked them to sign up because everybody was going into the service. So kids my age,
that makes sense.
We weren't old enough, and so we would go over to the firehouse at
right by the Alhambra Theater, the 4th, station number 4.
Yeah.
Which is the oldest one still remaining in Sacramento. It's still functional.
Yeah, and they had the building there for getting having experience. We would have to go up to the 4th floor and slide down a rope. And
I think that's still there.
Yeah. It is. And we had to get a bucket of sand. They said every home should have a bucket of sand on their front porch in case we were bombed. And this was right at the start of the war. And we had the sand there, and this was right there, right at the start. And they told us that there were going to be a squadron of Japanese planes flying overhead, and several times we went out to try and see the squadrons, which we never did.
Well, thank God they never came.
That's right.
But, and then you said you also worked, your father had rental property down at 8th and G, and you'd work on that.
Yeah, he would always be working down there.
Right.
he was.
So, did you learn any trade skills by doing that? Or?
Not really. Not so much. He was always repairing things down there, so I had to help him. But
that building's probably gone now.
yeah, oh yes, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right across the street from the city building, and I can't even think of which one it is.
Oh, the courthouse. Yeah. Then you graduate from high school and you join the Navy.
I did. Yep.
And you were 17.
Right.
Did you graduate in 43 or 44?
I graduated in 44.
Okay.
And so I had to get my folks' permission to sign up,
Right.
which they agreed to, and so I had to show up to be assigned.
Did you go to Oakland or where?
No, I went into San Francisco.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly where we went, but I do remember when we went down there, and there were a whole bunch of us, 15 guys,
Right.
and we were collected together, and there was a fellow from the Navy. He was in uniform, and the rest of us were in just regular school clothes.
Right.
And we all stuck together, 15 of us, and the fellows got us. He got us on a train going back east, and
To Jacksonville.
to Jacksonville. Yeah. That's where we went into the Navy. We got indoctrinated.
So that's where basic training was.
Yeah.
And that was 6 weeks long?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And
How did you feel about basic training at the time? Do you remember? I mean,
we were happy to, because everybody else was in the service.
Yeah.
And so it was just one more thing that we had to do, and it was good. And there were some guys that didn't like it, and some guys were crying every night when they were there.
Were there a lot of guys that were as young as you in this group?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
We were all about the same age.
Yeah, okay.
There were some that were older, but
Yeah. So you finish basic training, and then you're going to be sent to Memphis, right?
yeah, and so that's where we're going to learn our what we do in the service.
Yeah, whatever your skill was.
Yeah, and we got assigned to the Air Corps of the Navy,
Uh-huh.
and so I got assigned to radio school, and we were there in radio school, and have to learn how to run the radios,
Right.
and that took about 6 weeks, and then they shipped us down to Corpus Christi, and we got assigned
An airplane?
a crew.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so there were we were all in crews, and that's when we first got assigned an airplane.
The next, once you get this, you said while you were there, though, you were cruising over the Gulf of Mexico looking for German submarines.
Yeah. That's what.
That sounds kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Did you ever see any?
No.
Oh, shucks.
No.
And so you're going to go to the Pacific, though, not the Atlantic. So you headed to San Diego.
Yeah.
And then you are basically still training on the plane there, practicing bombing runs.
Yeah.
And with your goal is to fly to Hawaii.
Yeah, or into the Pacific, wherever
Right.
they wanted us.
Yeah, but that'd be the first stop would be Hawaii.
Yeah. Kaneohe is the lagoon on the backside of Hawaii that was, all of the seaplanes landed there.
Kaneohe.
Kaneohe.
Yeah.
Kaneohe.
A lot of vowels in that language. And you said you always packed along your saxophone.
Always had it, and I'd check in with on the field, wherever they had all the fields always had a spot for put together music, and they'd have a piano there, and so we'd practice there, and I always took my saxophone wherever I went.
Well, that was smart.
Yeah, it
Sometimes
worked.
you're not picking up cigarette butts, you're actually playing at a band or something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because then from there we were assigned to go to Guam, and so we got our crew together, and I think there were two other seaplanes and our own, and we headed up into the Marshall Islands, and
Because you have to hop someplace before you get to Guam.
we went into Guam, and we had some fun there because there were some Marines there that had stolen an ammo boat. And
Sounds like
so
Marines.
and they were going around the islands that way, and so they sold it to us for $20, and so we had that for a while, and while we were stationed there, it was
Basic,
great.
you in Guam, you're getting ready for what you expect to be the major invasion
That's
of
right.
Japan.
That's right.
Where they estimated we'd have 1 million casualties doing this.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. We got assigned our planes, and the plane I was assigned to. Now the war is over. Now they've dropped the atomic bomb, and so our squadron moved up into Sasebo, which is part of Japan, and we flew out of there, and the plane I was assigned to was in Tokyo Bay, and I finally got to our plane, and it had a big hole in the wing that had been repaired, but it was the first plane that rescued a pilot in Tokyo Bay. The bay is real big.
Yeah.
And
But your mission before the atomic bombs was to pick up down pilots, right?
yeah.
That's what you were going to do.
That was the idea.
Yeah. And then you take a flight to Korea, right? And
Well, yeah, we did, and that was we flew up. They were just looking to see if there were any Japanese coming from there, and that's when the kamikaze planes shot some holes in our hull, and so when we came back to Sasebo, we got caught in a storm. and so we were in the bay there, and we would have to taxi to one end of the bay, and the wind would blow us back, and then we'd taxi up there again, and
But you got holes in your plane.
yeah, which is true, and so we were pumping water out of the hull. Marines came out to pick us up, and we got up into the bow of our airplane, and we were able to get out of our plane, and they just pulled a couple of the plugs, so our plane sank, and we got out.
Oh, gosh. I hate being rescued by Marines because they never let you forget it. So being in the Army, I never asked them for anything.
Absolutely.
So the war's over now, and
Yeah.
your primary mission is to fly sailors back to the U.S.,
Well,
right?
not so much our prime. We were flying the mail route,
Oh, okay.
so we would fly from Tokyo over to Shanghai,
Oh.
to Hong Kong.
So you're doing a kind of triangular kind of mail route.
We would go from Shanghai to Hong Kong to I forget.
Tokyo.
Yeah, that was back
Yeah.
the other direction.
Okay.
So we flew that route a couple of times, and then we got dispersed and assigned to other planes. Planes were going to be flying back to the mainland.
Right.
So they assigned me to a plane. It was a B-17, which was a land plane.
Yeah.
But I had to operate the telephone or the radios on it.
Yeah.
None of them worked.
Oh, gosh.
So we flew back to the mainland, came in and tried to figure out, well, do we go north or south?
So you would land at one of the fields close
Yeah.
to San Francisco, like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Moffett or Hamilton.
One
or-
one of them, I
Yeah.
don't remember one.
Right.
And we were done there, and they relieved, and they said, you got to head to Fort Ord, I think it was, where they were discharging. So I got there and spent a couple of days there, weeks there maybe, and finally, when I got to a discharging officer, they gave us $50 and
Said goodbye.
yeah, I headed for Sacramento.
So you came back to Sacramento, and
Yeah.
you decided soon after that, though, to go to college, right?
Oh, yes.
And
yeah.
you went to,
Claremont Men's College.
Very good school.
CMC.
and did you graduate from Claremont?
Yes,
then?
yes, I did. I graduated.
And you also mentioned UC Berkeley.
I did. I was I was going with a girl then, and she went to Scripps, which is right across the street from CMC.
Right.
And we spent 2 years down there,
Uh-huh.
and then I went to Berkeley to grad school,
Uh-huh.
and I got my master's degree
In business?
in business. Yeah. And got back to Sacramento, and went to work for the Morrissey Company, and I was selling real estate.
Okay. And they were at 729 J Street, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Which is a block from here.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were right down the street.
Yeah.
My father-in-law owned the company, Mr. Morrissey.
Oh, okay. And was this the girl you met at Scripps that you married?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And her name?
Joanne.
Okay. Joanne Morrissey.
Right, Joanne Morrissey.
Yeah. So eventually, though, you leave Morrissey and you're a partner,
Yeah.
eventually a partner in
Dunnigan, Yates and Stone.
Yates and Stone.
Yeah.
I knew that company growing up. I'd see your signs all over.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, in the north area, you folks were big out there. You had an office on El Camino, if I remember right.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Paul Bystrowski and the others. I don't know. I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, you're our first World War II veteran, and I thought that's a terrific story. I was as much interested in what Sacramento was like back then as I was, of
Well, sure.
what was going on in the war.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I just want to thank you very much for coming in today.
Well,
It's
you're
been a
welcome.
pleasure to talk to you, and pleasure to
I've done
meet
an
you.
awful lot of talking.
Well, that's the whole idea.
Right.
So
right.
thank you, Paul.